Today, Mox and I are going to look at the Skyward Sword Iceberg, and that means we will look at all the little secrets, theories, and Easter eggs we can find, like small lore details that reference games like A Link to the Past, or how to obtain infinite fairies with almost no effort. So without further ado, let's dive into the abyss. It's Dr.Wily Mox Iceberg! Now, before we get into this video, I would like to thank Laurulian Historian for his translations and insights used in this video. And I would also like to thank Moxie's research assistant Banoon for her hard work and dedication to these videos. Now let's get into the video. As most of you know, Nintendo re-released the game for the Switch, giving it a slight visual upgrade while adding some quality of life improvements as well. And so, a lot of people started to rediscover the game, with some finding interesting little Easter eggs. Like this, a rock that actually poops on Link's head when he flies by, which was found by Reddit user EnergyTurtle23. As you can see, Link can do nothing about it, while this poop slowly drains his stamina. So clearly, some enemies in the game have an interesting way of achieving revenge.
Now, one of the best things of the game is certainly the final fight that you have with Demise, the Demon King. It is an epic showdown between good and evil set in an interesting location that feels otherworldly. However, it can be quite tough to deal with him, and so at some point, Zelda fans have found a way to distract. If you wave your bug net around, Demise will actually follow it with his eyes, and is completely hypnotized by it, allowing you to strike or rest for a bit as he stops attacking. However, as you can see, some people even use it to deflect certain attacks. This way, they can defeat him more easily, and is also a lot faster. So clearly, this cute little net is also a bit of a weapon, although it does make the final fight a bit silly to be honest.
Now, sometimes you want to grab something that is just out of reach, and sometimes it is impossible, so you just decide to walk away. Here in Skyward Sword, there's actually a solution for this problem that is quite logical and simple. Apparently, you can use the whip to grab onto almost anything, not just poles and certain branches, or to pull out of reach levers. Oh no, you can grab loads of other stuff as well, which can be a lifesaver, and a lot of players never knew about this. Although I will say it can be quite frustrating to use, because due to the motion controls, the whip doesn't always do what you want, so it might take a bit.
Gaepora is pretty chilled about Zelda's kidnapping. When Link tells Gaepora what happened to Zelda, he seems too chilled for a father in this situation, except if he knows that everything will be fine. He trusts Link with everything and knows that he will save his daughter, as he shares a similar name to the shapeshifted form of the Sage of Light, who is said to have built the Temple of Time. He could have had some knowledge about what will come and has been told not to worry. Also, he does seem to have some insight about the hero prior to entering the goddess statue. Link, the knight with the legendary sword, will save Zelda and the world.
We all know the mechanic of the time shift stones. They can turn back time for a restricted area surrounding them. And Hyrule Historia on page number 53 mentions that the color of those stones reminds one a lot of the Ocarina of Time, and that they might be made out of the same material. Maybe the combination with the Song of Time expands their power. That's why Link travels through time, rather than the surroundings just changing.
During the day, remlets are the cute creatures that will follow Link when he plays the harp to sing to it. But once it turns dark and they become rabid monsters that will try to kill Link when he approaches them due to the presence of the demon Betrow. Once he is gratified, they too stop becoming a threat to Link at night. But if, let's say, an evil-minded person tries to throw them off the cliff, they will be surprised. Those little creatures can fly by using their ears as wings, so they are able to save themselves from falling.
When you walk up to the windmill you have to repair in a quest, you will find a bench. And when you take a seat, a mini cutscene will play, showing a view of Skyloft. There's nothing special to see or do. It's just Link enjoying a nice view during a quick break. Maybe Link and Zelda used to visit this place, and he remembers it fondly.
Once Link enters the restroom, there is nothing special. Luckily, we didn't interrupt anyone in a session. Speaking of which, if Link takes a seat on the toilet, he will stand up and the toilet will flush. Did he just in front of us? Nah. Link is a gentleman and simply peed While sitting? At least I hope so.
Now, sitting on certain stools or benches can activate a cutscene in Skyward Sword, and usually they are quite relaxing. But don't get caught doing this by the wrong one. Sitting on the stool close to the old lady in the sealed grounds causes her to speak up to Link. She says, "I do hope you're able to catch up with Zelda," implying that there's no time to be lazy and sit down. So, stop being lazy and go save Zelda!
When you roam around the game, all kinds of little Easter eggs can be found everywhere. And even from the beginning, there are weird things that can be found, like a Tingle doll. Now, Tingle was a character first seen in one of the strangest Zelda titles ever, Majora's Mask. But now he can be found in Zelda's room within the Skyloft's Academy, although her room door is locked. And so you'll have to enter through Karane's room and then use your dowsing ability to peer through the crack. And at that point, you should see it in plain sight on the shelf. In the end, we have no idea why it's there. Tingle didn't even exist in this time period of the franchise. And so many started to speculate, with some even claiming that Tingle is some sort of god or time traveler that is seen everywhere throughout the series. But in the end, it is most likely just an Easter egg.
Now, as you can imagine, Skyward Sword features a lot of sky sections. Who would have thought? And here we also see little Easter eggs and even mini-games. And one of those is built around creatures known as the Ringers. These are a type of flying squirrel that can be encountered in groups when skydiving to an island in the sky from great heights. They are completely harmless and will actually dive down and form a circle with Link if you touch them. And if you're able to touch them all, then you are even rewarded with 20 rupees, which is a nice reward for this minigame. Sure, it isn't much, but it's still a fun little touch, and it's certainly a lot of fun to collect them all in time.
In many Zelda games, you can find all kinds of ingredients that are very useful for a variety of things, like making potions as we saw in Wind Waker, where you can bring certain monster parts to a Korok in Forest Haven to get a blue potion. And as expected, you can also obtain certain ingredients in Skyward Sword that are very useful. One of those is mushroom spores. These mushrooms can be found all over the place, and if Link slashes them with his sword, he can capture mushroom spores, which can be stored in bottles and used to heal Loftwings. This isn't the only thing. Apparently there are also incredibly useful in combat. When you release the spores, they actually stun enemies, which can be very handy when you're surrounded. So these mushrooms are clearly useful for a number of things.
There's a cutscene when Link sits down on the chair next to the tree in the sacred temple, and a text box shows up, but it only says this. So could it be Link talking here? And because Link does not talk, it's up to the player to decide what he's saying while watching this beautiful tree. Who knows?
When you enter the depths of the ancient cistern, you will quickly come across horrible monsters. Bokoblins seem to be dead, but now they're back, returning as some sort of cursed zombies. And personally, I quite like these. They're a bit scary and a lot to deal with, especially near the end when you want to leave this hellscape below. However, during this section, you can actually defend yourself using only one item, and it works shockingly well. Just hold up the sacred shield in front of you, and all of a sudden the cursed Bokoblins are terrified and they won't attack you anymore. It seems like the blessed shield keeps beings like this at bay, a bit like the cross does with the vampire. So next time you encounter these, be sure to have the right shield with you.
Link seems to have an interesting hobby. He carves wood, and the tools for it can be found on the table in his room. He has made himself a figurine of his own Loftwing and what seems to be a remlet. He also made 2 bluebirds, which he gifted to Zelda. You can see both of them in her room. And interestingly enough, these carved birds resemble the tiny bluebirds you can find in the Faron region. Catching one of them rewards Link with a blue bird feather, with the item description of the feather saying, "Very few small birds possess this sky blue plumage, making these feathers extremely rare." Now, we don't know much about these birds or why Link knows about them, but this could be a way for him to tell Zelda how special she is to him.
In Skyward Sword, different races can be seen, from Explorer Gorons, Kikwi, Perella, and Faron, Magmas and Eldin, and so on. Most of them seem to be an ancient form of Koroks and Zora, but there are only mechanical beings in Lanayru, like the robots. But we get a hint at what will come from an ancient dragonfly, the Gerudo dragonfly. Was the Gerudo desert, or is the race already a thing that we haven't seen in the game? Or were the desert and its people called after this dragonfly?
One object that is seen in almost every Zelda title since Ocarina of Time is the Gossip Stone. They are mysterious stones that seem to be related to the Sheikah tribe, somehow, and in many of the games they can give you tips or inform you about certain secrets. And of course, they are also seen in Skyward Sword where you have to find them, but you can actually mess with them if you want to. For example, if you put a bomb next to them, they will actually take off like a rocket. But this isn't all. They also react to different actions, such as shrinking when a gust bellows or glittering spores are used on them, or releasing a green rupee when shot with a bow. So mess around with them for a bit. It's a lot of fun.
In the original cave of The Legend of Zelda, you come across the moblin in the cave. If you talk to him, he won't attack you. Instead, he will tell you it's a secret to everybody and give you 100 rupees. In Faron Woods in Skyward Sword, you can come across a Kikwi. If approached, he can be asked about the sacred flame. He reminds you that it's a secret to everybody before giving out any more information to Link.
Throughout Skyloft, there are multiple beautiful spots to visit, some of which are only reachable after obtaining a certain item in the game. After Link gets the double claw shot, he's now able to find his way to higher places and get over specific walls, one of which can be found to the left of the goddess statue. There you can find a claw spot. Getting over that wall will at first reveal nothing special, but a little flower field. Walk up to them during the day and you will find something adorable. Multiple ramlets taking a nap between the flowers. Once investigated, they will wake up and start to walk towards Link, meowing at him. There's nothing more to find here, but it's a cute place to come to when you're exhausted from saving the world.
1986 was the year most of us weren't even born yet. This year, the first Legend of Zelda game saw the light of day. The game was so loved that they continued to make games in the franchise till this day. Let's all thank the 80s kids that annoyed their parents enough to get their hands on this game. So Nintendo had a reason to continue to please us with such an amazing franchise. The year 2011, Skyward Sword was born. 25 years after the first Zelda, the anniversary was celebrated by many players and Nintendo. And myself, actually. We were surprised with amiibos, an orchestra, a book, and so much more. But with the era of the Wii, many new Zelda players joined the party who had no idea about the other games, the story connection, or how the franchise itself is. To let those players be a part of this anniversary, Nintendo has put out a tiny hint in the game. At the wing ceremony, Olan gives a speech. He tells us that this is the 25th anniversary of the ceremony. This is Nintendo's sneaky way to tell new players that the game is older than they think.
Link can obtain various medals throughout the game that can help him in different ways. For example, they can give him extra hearts, make more rupees spawn, or show bugs on the map. But there's one medal that is different from the others. When Link completes the quest with this guy, I don't know how to pronounce his name, a treasure next to him will be available. He tells Link that there's a curse inside and that he shouldn't open it. But if you decide to ignore him and open the box, they will get the cursed medal. This purple medal lets rupees and treasures spawn far more often, but you are unable to use your equipment. Which reminds me of something. The malice/gloom in the cistern. Was the metal crafted here, or with the same stuff? Who knows?
On the bazaar, you find Patrice. She is the owner of the item check. If Link talks to her more than he should, she will start showing affections towards him. She starts calling him darling at one point. If she does so, Link can visit her at the house at night for some more interactions with her. She asks Link some questions. Link has the option to be nice to her or not. If you pick to be nice, the answer option I like you will pop up. When you ask Fi for her opinion, she will tell you that your interest in this woman is clear and that your aura shines bright around her presence. But she also gives you a reminder that it's best not to talk to Zelda about this.
Now, while a lot of people absolutely loved Skyward Sword for its deep lore, amazing dungeons, and fun bosses, there were also a number of people that weren't too excited about it. And to be honest, I am one of those people. The game has some shortcomings. It was very linear, hand-holdy, and reused some fights way too often. But hey, no game is perfect. And even Nintendo agrees with this, and even changed course because of it. In this article from 2014 from from Zelda Dungeon, it says, longtime Zelda director Eiji Aonuma has admitted in an interview with the official Nintendo magazine that his recent Zelda creation, A Link Between Worlds, has helped him see that the recent Zelda titles have been too linear. While creating such titles as Skyward Sword, Aonuma thought gamers did not enjoy the idea of challenging themselves to complete a Zelda title without the extra help provided in the game. But the impact that A Link Between Worlds had on Aonuma was so immense that the Zelda producer has now come to the point of fully questioning the series' traditional formula. This is something a lot of people don't really know. While Skyward Sword was a great game, it made the creators of it question themselves and their ideas, which led to the new era of Zelda games that are now seen on the Nintendo Switch. And those are completely open world and allow players to do whatever they want, whenever they want.
Now, throughout the game, you come across multiple incredibly important characters. People have massive impact on the game's story, and one of the first people you meet is Gaepora, the father of Zelda, headmaster of the Knights Academy. Especially in the beginning of the game, you see him a lot, but you can also encounter him in a more interesting setting. If you go out at night and make your way around the Knight Academy, get to the rooftop, you can find another way in. If you use your hookshot on the top of the chimney, you can enter the building from there. End up in a very odd place. If you look through the grate below your feet, you can actually see Gaepora bathing, but it gets even weirder. Only the upper half of his body is there, with his legs being completely gone, as they weren't needed because normally you can't see this. Now, it's a bit odd that Nintendo added this little Easter egg, but also shows detail and shows what this important figure does in his free time.
In the game, Gaepora is seen as a wise man that has clearly seen a lot in his lifetime and learned a lot from it. He's knowledgeable of the history and legends of Skyloft and proves to be invaluable help to Link during his quest to save Zelda. But how does he know all of this stuff? Well, by the looks of it, reading played an important role, and in his artwork we can see him holding one of these books. And interestingly enough, it seems like this book has been seen in the series before, because it looks very similar to the Book of Majora from A Link to the Past. It's a collection of ancient Hylian lore and stories, as well as a guide to translating the ancient Hylian language that appears throughout the land of Hyrule. And in the SNES Zelda game, it can be found in a library south of Kakariko Village, and it plays a big role in that game. However, by the looks of it, it was first seen on Skyloft at the very beginning of the Zelda timeline. But we can't be sure if this is really the same book.
Now, even though the Legend of Zelda games are mostly set in medieval settings, we almost always come across robots that help us or try to kill us. Once you finally make it to Lanayru, you will come across loads of robots due to the facilities that were once there. Now, one enemy that you end up fighting a lot is the Beamos, who are seen a lot inside a Lanayru mining facility. For the most part, they aren't too hard to deal with, but as usual, there are ways to make defeating them easier. Many people don't know that you can actually reflect the beam it shoots back and stun Beamos. A Reddit user going by the name of Olalan Oak showed this off, and all you need to do is trust the shield. This way, the beam backfires, actually allowing you to cut up the robot into little pieces. It's a small trick, but it's incredibly handy.
Now, while Skyward Sword was very linear and slow-paced at times, it did actually have a lot of side quests. And for completing these, you always get something called gratitude crystals, which some sort of come out of people when they are overwhelmed with feelings of thankfulness. And these are crucial for a side quest in the game where you turn a demon into a human using these crystals. However, did you know that these crystals are actually based on a Japanese candy known as this? Did you know gaming found out about this? Now, this candy is a type of Japanese sugary candy, and it takes the form of a small sphere with a bumpy surface, and comes in a variety of colors and flavors. For example, red ones are strawberry flavored. Now, originally, this isn't really a Japanese thing, because the original technique for producing sugar candy was introduced to Japan in the early 16th century by Portuguese traders. But over time, it became a classic, and so Nintendo used this for the design of the gratitude crystals and even the star bits from Super Mario Galaxy.
Now, out of all the characters in the game, there is one that you talk to the most, Fi, the spirit that is found within the goddess sword. Sure, most of the time she is just talking about no reason at all, bothering you about your batteries or some other nonsense. However, in many ways she can also be quite useful in finding your way around Hyrule. But did you know that the sounds that she makes is not just utter gibberish? She does say something. If you reverse the stuff that she says, you will notice that she's actually speaking Japanese, which is crazy. Here, take a listen. So while it does make it sound like random little noises, Fi does actually speak real world language, but in reverse.
Nintendo loves to include bits of realism in their games, small details that most will never notice, and we will share one of these. Now sure, it's completely useless, but it does actually work. In Skyward Sword you will get a slingshot just like in Twilight Princess, and these are normally used for a number of things. Getting rid of enemies, hitting specific buttons, or things to advance in the game. However, one thing it can do that most people don't think about is blowing out flames, because if you shoot close to a flame, it will actually go out. Now sure, it's not very useful in most cases, but still interesting.
Throughout the game, we have to play the Goddess Harp multiple times, but most players don't know that there's a secret sequence that you are able to play the harp. When you beat the game, you are able to press A and swing your Wiimote in order to play the harp along the credit music. It's easy to miss, but once figured out, it's a great way to keep players in the credits, as there are a lot of cutscenes we're seeing.
In Zelda's room in the Knight Academy, we can find a lot of knitting material. Compared to Karane's room, it seems that she taught Zelda how to knit. Zelda has practiced a lot since. She has made her own pillows, carpets, and a tingle plush? As the reincarnation of the Goddess of Time, she may have foreseen his upcoming appearance, confused him for Link in his green tunic, and made this tingle plush. It's a bit odd, but still a fun little detail.
The Legend of Zelda series is no stranger to music references and wonderful soundtracks. Skyward Sword is no exception. From Fi's theme to Zelda's lullaby hidden in the Ballad of the Goddess that known players will notice right away. But there are even more subtle music references that are sometimes hard to hear, if not listened to. One example is the music that we hear in the bazaar. There is an overall theme that is playing once you enter, but when Link approaches different shop owners, the music will start to shift to fit their personalities, as the main theme will not be interrupted when you speak to them.
Aye. Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to notice at first, but once heard, it can't be unheard.
We've already talked about the quote, "It's a secret to everybody," where it comes from and how the Kikwi tells you this. But what if I tell you there's another character that will say this as well? There's a Perella at Lake Floria hiding behind a bombable wall, and if Link talks to him, he tells him where to find the water dragon, but that it's a secret to everybody. So we actually see it twice in the game.
In Twilight Princess, Zelda tells Link about the Master Sword and that it was crafted by the wisdom of ancient sages, even though Skyward Sword tells us otherwise. Or is Link a sage here? Never mind. The point is that Skyward Sword's sacred temple, right here, where the temple and the statue split to be moved up to the skies, you can find what seems to depict the sages' medallions. Those who have played Ocarina of Time must recognize the symbols depicted. It's a nice little Easter egg for returning players.
The Gust Bellow is an item obtained at the Lanayru mining facility. It looks like a vase with an extra hole at the bottom, and through some sort of magic, it sucks up air on the bottom and turns it into wind, like a fan. And that air is then blown out through a small hole. It functions like a leaf blower in this game. You can clean up dirt, dusty, or sandy places with it, and it is just wind. And as it is just wind, you can use this item against everything and everyone, without hesitation. The residents of Skyloft will shield their faces when Link tries to blow the wind on them, but not Malara. This is the lady with the super dusty house. She asks you to help clean her home for 20 rupees, which the hero will kindly do. Now, if you blow wind in her face, she will not shield herself. She will gladly enjoy the nice breeze. A little wind can be refreshing after all.
The Lanayru Desert is where we can find not only the robots mining space-time stones, but also the dragon Lanayru himself. After a quick talk with him, he assigns Link his model number. It is LD Link 16. LD stands for Lanayru Desert, the Link stands for Link, and Link is confirmed to be 17 in the game. So why 16? 16 is a nod to the older games, as this is the 16th Zelda game released, and the 16th model of Link.
One thing in the world of Zelda that is always incredibly important is healing items, because without them, you are doomed. Even in the most recent Zelda titles for the Nintendo Switch, we can still see how important this stuff is. So any tips or tricks that can help you with this are worth their weight in gold. And in Skyward Sword, you also have some amazing shortcuts. If you use some mushroom powder on one of the heart plants that can be found throughout the game, it will actually turn into a fairy. This is great if you are in need for those. And I mean, most of us will take as many as we can because they will resurrect you upon death. So keep this in mind next time you're on your way to a difficult boss.
Now, in Skyward Sword, there are loads of iconic characters that people in the fan base still love a lot, even though the game is getting quite old at this point. And one of those is Girahim, the demon lord who serves the demon king, Demise, who is his master. Now, one thing I hear a lot is that people love his over-the-top character design. It is both interesting as well as terrifying, especially due to the fact that his weird tongue wiggle he does sometimes. However, originally Nintendo had a lot of different design ideas for Girahim, and all of them are pretty crazy. As you can see right here, Nintendo made loads of different outfits for him. Even his entire face and body could have been very different. Personally, I quite like all these designs, especially the one with the horns looks great. But still, I'm more happy with the final design that we got.
We all know Groose. He's Link's bully. He looks pretty strong, which makes sense as soon as you see the weights in his room. But Groose seems to have a hobby too. He collects feathers. In his room, multiple different kinds of feathers can be found. Some of them are pretty small, while others are massive, possibly from a loft wing. And as you can see, he even frames them.
Goddess Plume, which translates to lost item or property of the goddess, are treasures that you can use to improve your items and weapons. If you didn't know, a plume is a feather. There aren't a lot of deities with feathers in the series. You know what these plumes remind me of? The fuzzy little feathers the dragons in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom have on their legs. Maybe Hylia and even the other goddesses were dragons after all, but the humans depicted her as one of their own kind, just like real-life religions have done with the god.
Strig is a rather strange character. Overall, he's a kind person, but his obsession with bugs is something that not everyone can relate to. His room is littered with framed bugs of all kinds, but he also has a different, secret obsession: Groose. He has a hidden picture of Groose underneath the table in his room. So, is there something going on between them? Well, we have no idea. As you can clearly see, the Skyward Sword Iceberg is wild. But don't worry, we will look into a lot more of them. So be sure to subscribe to my channel and Moxie's so you won't miss any future adventures.